Have you ever caught yourself acting like someone you're not, just to fit in? Maybe you laughed at a joke you didn't find funny, dressed in a way that wasn't really you, or stayed quiet when deep down you wanted to speak up. It happens to all of us, but here's the truth: if you can't be yourself, you're already lost. Think about it. Every single time you trade your authenticity for approval, you're giving away a piece of yourself little by little. And eventually, you wake up and realize you've been living someone else's life, not yours. The world doesn't need another copy. It doesn't need another version of someone else. It needs you, your quirks, your thoughts, your voice, your vision. That's the only thing you have that no one else can offer. And let's be honest, pretending is exhausting. It takes so much energy to wear a mask every day, to constantly wonder if people will accept the version of you that isn't even real. But being yourself, that's freedom. That's power. That's where real connection begins, because people can feel when you're genuine. They can see when you're showing up as your true self, and that's when the right people gravitate towards you. You don't have to chase acceptance. You don't have to force belonging. When you are unapologetically yourself, you attract what is meant for you, and you repel what isn't. And yes, that means not everyone is going to like you, and that's okay. You're not here for everyone. You're here for the people who see the real you and say, yes, that's my person. The saddest thing isn't being disliked. The saddest thing is never knowing who you really are because you were too busy trying to be what everyone else wanted. So if you've been hiding, if you've been shrinking, if you've been bending yourself just to be accepted, this is your wake-up call. Stop giving the world a watered-down version of you. Stop living in fear of judgment. The truth is, people will judge you anyway. So you might as well give them the real you. Remember this: masks may win you applause, but authenticity wins you peace. And at the end of the day, peace is priceless. So here's the challenge: be yourself, fully, unapologetically, boldly. Because if you can't be yourself, you're already lost. But if you are yourself, you've already won. And the funny thing is, the moment you stop trying to impress everyone, that's when people actually start noticing you. Not because you're louder or trying harder, but because you're real. There's something magnetic about someone who is comfortable in their own skin, who doesn't need to perform, who doesn't need to prove. It's rare, and rare always stands out. Think about the people you admire most. Chances are, it's not because they were perfect, but because they were authentic. They owned who they were, flaws and all, and that gave you permission to do the same. That's the ripple effect of authenticity. It inspires more of it. And here's what most people never realize. When you're yourself, you stop competing. There's no race, no comparison, no endless cycle of trying to outdo someone else. Because no one can outdo you at being you. That's your superpower. And the moment you lean into that, you stop chasing and you start attracting. You stop begging for opportunities, for relationships, for recognition, because the right ones find you naturally when you're aligned with who you really are. But when you're not yourself, everything feels like a struggle. Every door feels heavy. Every interaction feels forced. Every achievement feels hollow. Because it wasn't really yours, it belonged to the version of you that you created for other people. And deep down, you know that. You feel it. That quiet emptiness that no amount of validation can fill, because validation can't replace authenticity. And that's why the little moments matter so much. The times you say what you really think instead of holding back. The times you wear what feels good instead of what's expected. The times you choose the path that excites you, even if people don't understand it. Those tiny decisions stack up, and suddenly you're building a life that actually feels like yours. You start noticing that the weight on your chest gets lighter, that you're breathing easier, that you're not constantly second-guessing every move you make. You stop waiting for permission, and you start giving it to yourself. And when you do, something shifts. People start responding to you differently. Some drift away, and that's natural because they were connected to the mask, not the real person underneath. But others, they draw closer. They lean in. They see you clearly, maybe for the first time, and they respect it. Even if they don't agree with you, they respect the courage it takes to be unapologetically real in a world where everyone's trying to edit themselves into perfection. And it's in those moments you realize you never needed to be anyone else. The only thing you ever needed was the courage to show up as you are. And once you taste that freedom, you can't unknow it. You start recognizing all the places in your life where you were bending just to fit into someone else's expectations. You notice how many times you said yes when you wanted to say no, how often you played small just so others would feel comfortable, how many dreams you buried because you thought they were too different. It's almost shocking when you see it clearly, but it's also powerful because once you see it, you can't keep living that way. You start asking better questions. What do I really want? What actually makes me feel alive? What do I believe in, even if no one else agrees? And the answers don't always come instantly, but every time you lean into them, you uncover more of yourself. That's when your voice starts getting stronger, your choices start getting bolder, and your life starts feeling more like it was designed by you instead of scripted for you. People around you might not understand it. Some might even resist it because when you change, it forces them to see their own masks too. And not everyone is ready for that mirror. But that's not your responsibility. Your responsibility is to live in alignment with who you really are, no matter how uncomfortable it makes others. Because pretending protects no one. It only delays the moment you finally decide to live fully. And the more you practice it, the more natural it becomes. At first, it feels risky to speak up, to stand out, to walk in a direction that others might not approve of. But over time, you realize the real risk was in holding back. Every step you take as your authentic self strengthens your confidence, and that confidence becomes unshakable because it's rooted in truth, not in performance. You don't have to keep track of who you were with different people, you don't have to remember the version of yourself you showed last week, you don't have to juggle masks anymore. You just show up as you are, every time, everywhere. And that kind of consistency is rare, it's magnetic. People are drawn to it because deep down they crave it for themselves. They see in you what they've been hiding in themselves, and it sparks something in them. That's the ripple effect. You being real gives others permission to be real too. And when that happens, conversations get deeper, relationships get stronger, and connections get richer. Suddenly, you're not just surrounded by people, you're surrounded by people who actually know you, who value you, who aren't attached to the performance but to the person. And that kind of connection is worth more than all the surface-level approval in the world. And when you experience that level of connection, it changes the way you see everything. Suddenly, the things you thought mattered, impressing strangers, chasing validation, blending in just to be accepted, start to lose their power over you. You realize that most of the approval you were chasing was never real in the first place. It was fragile, conditional, and it could disappear the second you stopped performing. But the acceptance that comes when you're truly yourself, that's solid. That's lasting. It doesn't vanish when you make a mistake, because it's not based on perfection, it's based on truth. And the more you embrace that, the more you start to feel a quiet strength inside you. A strength that doesn't need to shout, doesn't need to prove, doesn't need to compete. It just is. That's when you begin to notice a shift in your energy. You're not walking into rooms hoping people will like you, you're walking in already knowing who you are. You're not bending your words to fit the crowd. You're speaking in a way that aligns with your values. You're not scared of being different, you're proud of it, because different is what makes you unforgettable. And little by little, the fear of judgment that once held you back starts to fade, because you've seen that being real doesn't break you, it builds you. And the longer you live this way, the more you begin to see just how much of life opens up when you stop hiding. Opportunities that once felt out of reach start showing up. Not because you suddenly became someone else, but because you finally allowed yourself to be seen. The doors you thought were locked were only closed to the version of you that wasn't real. Once you step into authenticity, the right doors start swinging wide. You begin to notice how different the world feels when you're not filtering yourself, when you're not shrinking down, when you're not censoring your own existence just to make others comfortable. There's a kind of lightness that comes with it, like you've been carrying a heavy backpack for years without realizing it, and suddenly you set it down. And once you feel that, you wonder how you ever lived any other way. Every choice starts aligning differently. You start saying yes to what excites you, no to what drains you, and you start realizing you're building a life that feels real instead of a performance that feels empty. People who don't get it may call you selfish, but deep down, you know it isn't selfish, it's necessary. Because you can't give the world your best if you're too busy pretending to be someone you're not. And once that realization settles in, You stop apologizing for existing the way you were meant to. You stop explaining yourself to people who were never listening in the first place. You stop twisting yourself into shapes that don't belong to you. Instead, you walk into your own skin like it's home, because that's exactly what it is. And the world starts reflecting that back to you. People respond differently when you're aligned, when your words match your actions, when your presence carries a kind of calm certainty. It doesn't mean life suddenly becomes easy, but it does become clearer. You stop wasting time on battles that don't matter, on trying to win approval that has no real value, on chasing standards that were never yours to begin with. Every ounce of energy that used to go into keeping up appearances gets redirected into growth, into passion, into creating, into building the kind of existence that actually excites you. And that's when momentum takes over. You find yourself in spaces you never imagined, meeting people who see you fully, experiencing moments that only happened because you showed up as you. And even when challenges come, you handle them differently, because you're no longer fighting them as a watered-down version of yourself. You're facing them as the strongest, truest version you've ever been. And when you finally reach that place, when you're living as your real self without hesitation, you see that everything you were searching for outside of you was always waiting inside. The peace, the confidence, the clarity, it doesn't come from pretending, it comes from being. And that's why the most powerful thing you can ever do is choose to be yourself, every single day, no matter who's watching. Because that's not just how you find your path, that's how you create it. If this message spoke to you, don't keep it to yourself. Share it with someone who needs to hear it today. And if you want more reminders like this, make sure to like this video, subscribe to the channel, and turn on the notifications so you don't miss the next one. Your journey to being fully you is just beginning, and I'll be right here walking with you.